All right, so are you ready to, like, dive into this world? Spirituality and controversy, maybe even a little bit of political intrigue?
Sounds intense.
It is, it is. So you guys gave us a really fascinating collection of sources on Chris Butler,
Uh-huh.
also known as Jagad Guru Siddhisvarapananda Paramahamsa.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is. We're talking excerpts from books about cults. We've got articles, social media posts, like the whole mix.
Little bit of everything.
Yeah. So our mission today is to try to help you guys listening understand who is Chris Butler?
Right.
What are these organizations he's connected to? And what's all the buzz surrounding him?
Yeah, and what makes this deep dive especially interesting, I think, is that it isn't just about, one man or one organization. It really gets us thinking about, like, the nature of spiritual authority, the dynamics between gurus and disciples, and that fine line between, devotion and maybe something a bit more troubling.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Chris Butler
Okay.
is originally from Hawaii, founded the Science of Identity Foundation, SAFE, back in 1977.
Oh, gotcha.
Now, SAFE is rooted in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is a branch of Hinduism.
Okay.
But here's where it gets kind of interesting right from the start. Butler's own father, a doctor, reportedly labeled him a narcissistic psychopath.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement, right? And it kind of sets the stage for all these controversies that we're going to unpack.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, that statement coming from his own father really raises some questions about his character from the very beginning. Makes you wonder, did some of these alleged, narcissistic tendencies manifest later on in how he was leading SIF?
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so we've got this organization, S, operating for, decades, right? But in Poland, it's gone by a bunch of different names. So it was the Institute of Knowledge of Identity, Chaitanya Mission, then School of Meditation and Self-Realization, and even just mantra.pl.
Like, what's going on with all the name changes?
Exactly. Like, is it just adapting to different cultures, or could there be something a little more strategic going on?
Yeah, that's a question I think a lot of people have asked, and it's hard to say for sure, but I do think that when an organization changes names that frequently, it does make you wonder, are they trying to distance themselves from past controversies?
Mm.
Maybe obscure, like, their true nature or something like that.
Okay, so to really grasp what's happening with SIF, we need to understand this, like, this guru-disciple relationship within Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Right.
Can you break that down for us? Like,
Yeah.
what does it actually mean to be a guru, and how's that relationship supposed to work?
Sure, yeah. So in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the guru is considered to be like a spiritual guide. So someone who's there to help the disciple move along on their spiritual path and ultimately achieve liberation. And the relationship is really built on, like, trust and surrender. So the disciple ideally is going to be kind of accepting the guru's teachings and guidance without question.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then this passing down of wisdom from the guru to the disciple, that's all part of, what we call a lineage, and it's called parampara, and that connects all the way back to the tradition's founder.
Okay, so in this context, Butler is claiming to be guru.
That's right.
He's, like, initiating disciples and everything.
Yeah.
But some of these sources that we have, particularly former members of SAF, really question his legitimacy.
Uh-huh.
Like, is he really a guru?
Yeah, they claim that, he's deviated from traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that his teachings are, maybe distorted or not quite right.
Okay, so they're basically saying he's taken on this, like, the role of a traditional guru,
Yeah.
but maybe his methods don't really align with the genuine lineage.
Right, exactly. And this raises some really important questions, like, what happens when that guru-disciple relationship becomes unbalanced?
Yeah.
What are the risks when a disciple gives up their critical thinking
Right.
to a guru who maybe isn't, as enlightened as they're claiming to be?
That's a great question. Okay, now let's get into the really, like, juicy stuff. The controversies and allegations against Butler.
Uh-oh.
Yes, several sources. I'm talking former members, critics, even investigative journalists are calling him a cult leader.
Wow.
Straight up. And they're accusing him of like manipulation, exploitation, and even psychological abuse within C.
Yeah, and some of those accusations are pretty disturbing. Like, former members have described this system that's designed to basically break down your sense of self and make you totally dependent on Butler. There's talk about, like, intense pressure to devote all your time, energy, and resources to the organization, often, like, to the point of neglecting your own relationships, like, even basic needs.
Wow.
Yeah, we even see accounts of, like, public shaming, forced confessions, tactics that are commonly used in cults
Right.
to control members.
That sounds incredibly intense. Like, how do people even get caught up in something like that? Do you think it has anything to do with, like, that whole guru-disciple dynamic we were just talking about?
It could be. I mean, in that guru-disciple dynamic, there is this inherent, power differential.
Right.
The guru's seen as the source of knowledge and guidance.
Yeah.
The disciple's expected to surrender to that authority. Now, in a healthy dynamic, that can actually be a powerful force for growth.
Right.
But, in the wrong hands, that can be used to manipulate and control.
Absolutely.
What's fascinating here, I think, is how Butler may have used those traditional elements of that guru-disciple relationship, like the emphasis on surrender and obedience,
Uh-huh.
to exert a level of control that goes beyond what's ethical or healthy.
Okay, so we're starting to see this pattern of, like, alleged manipulation and control. But it's not just psychological, right?
Yeah.
There's also some serious concerns about Butler's lifestyle and how Seth handles its finances.
Right. And one of the criticisms that comes up a lot is, like, the difference between Butler's, a pretty lavish lifestyle
Okay.
and the traditional renunciate vows of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking multiple luxury homes, a private jet, a yacht.
Come on.
Now, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there's this emphasis on, detachment from material possessions.
Right.
Simple, humble way of life. But
Yeah.
Butler's lifestyle seems to contradict those ideals.
Totally. It's like he's preaching one thing but living a very different life.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, where's all the money for this lifestyle coming from?
Exactly.
Some sources are saying that SIF members are being pressured to donate, like, large sums of money, and that he's essentially using those donations to fund this extravagant lifestyle.
And those allegations of financial impropriety, those are serious. If true, it does suggest a pattern of deception and, a potential abuse of power. It's one thing to live a simple life while teaching out spiritual principles, but it's quite another to amass wealth while urging your followers to renounce, material attachments.
Right. This is starting to sound like a real-life thriller. Yeah. We've got allegations of psychological manipulation, a lifestyle that doesn't really match the spiritual teachings, and now potential financial wrongdoing.
It's a lot.
But wait, there's more. Enter QNet.
Oh, boy.
A multi-level marketing company. And this is where things get really tangled. Okay, so we were just talking about QNet, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how it all fits into this story. Can you kind of connect the dots for us?
Sure. So QNet is this multi-level marketing company, and it's actually been accused of, like, operating as a pyramid scheme. And a key figure in QNet is Joseph Bismarck, who also goes by Japa Das.
Oh.
Now, Bismarck is a disciple of Butler, and some sources are alleging that he's used his position in QNet to basically funnel money back to Seth.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying that, like, a disciple of Butler is potentially using this controversial business model, one that's even accused of being illegal in some countries, to support Butler's organization?
Seems like that, yeah.
That's crazy.
It raises some ethical questions for sure. And it's not just about the money, right? Like, it also makes you wonder about what kind of teachings or guidance Butler's providing to his disciples, especially those in positions of power within QNet.
Right.
Is he, like, turning a blind eye to these, potentially unethical practices, or is there something more to it?
Yeah. It's like this whole thing just keeps getting deeper and more complex. Okay, so we've got this potential, like, financial, stuff going on, the connections to this multi-level marketing company, and now we got to talk about Tulsi Gabbard.
Okay.
So she's a former U.S. Congresswoman, and her connection to Seth goes all the way back to her childhood.
Wow.
So why is this relevant to our deep dive here?
Well, some sources are alleging that Gabbard's involvement with Seth goes beyond just, personal faith. They're claiming that Butler and his organization have actually had a big influence on her political career, even, like, contributing a lot to her campaigns.
And it's not just, like, random speculation. Like, Gabbard's own aunt has publicly criticized her, claiming that Tulsi's political ambitions are actually driven by Butler's desire for power and influence.
Yeah, and that's a serious accusation. I mean, it suggests that Butler might be using Gabbard's political platform, to kind of further his own agenda, whatever that may
Oh,
be.
wow.
And it definitely raises concerns about whether Gabbard's decisions as a public official were really her own, or was she being kind of unduly influenced by this controversial spiritual leader.
Okay, so we're starting to see how this story extends beyond just, like a spiritual organization going into the realm of politics. But let's kind of back up a bit and focus on some of the specific criticisms that are leveled against Butler and Sif. One of the most common accusations is the exploitation of members, financially and emotionally.
Right, and we do see this theme like echoed in a lot of the accounts from former SF members.
Yeah.
They describe an environment where they were pressured to give their time, their money, their energy to the organization, often like at the expense of their own well-being.
Right, and there's stories of people being like encouraged to cut ties with their family,
Yeah.
to give up their careers, to donate like huge sums of money, all in the name of serving the guru.
Right.
One particular account that I found really disturbing was from a former member who described being like pressured to sever ties with their family
Wow.
because they were considered a bad influence.
That's awful.
It's like they were being encouraged to isolate themselves from anyone who might like question their involvement with Sif.
Right. That's a classic tactic used by cults to control their members, right? By isolating people from their support networks and outside influences, they become more descendant on the group and more, susceptible to manipulation.
And the financial aspect is really troubling, right? Like we were talking earlier about Butler's, pretty lavish lifestyle.
Mm.
But it's not just about him, personally benefiting. There are allegations that Seth has like used questionable fundraising practices, pressuring members to donate beyond their means, or even using like deceptive tactics to solicit money.
Yeah, and when you combine those allegations of financial exploitation with the stories of psychological manipulation,
Yeah.
it starts to paint a pretty disturbing picture of what life inside Ceph might have been like for some members.
Yeah. Okay, but not everyone sees Butler and Seth in a negative light.
Right.
We also have sources that defend him, saying that, the criticisms are exaggerated or taken out of context.
That's true. There are current Ceph members who, speak very highly of Butler. They praise him as a wise and compassionate teacher, someone who's helped them find meaning and purpose in their lives.
Hmm.
And they argue that the negative portrayals of Ceph are just based on misunderstandings or maybe like the biased accounts of disgruntled former members.
Right. So how do we reconcile these like very different narratives? Is like everyone has, a piece of the puzzle, but it's hard to see the full picture. Like how do we know who to believe?
Right. That's the challenge, I think, with any situation where you have, such polarized viewpoints.
Yeah.
I think it's important to approach all of these sources with a healthy dose of skepticism,
Yeah.
both, the positive and the negative. We have to consider the motivations and the potential biases of each source.
Yeah.
Are they speaking from personal experience? Are they trying to like promote a particular agenda?
It's like that saying, consider the source.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's try to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture here. What do you think this whole Chris Butler and Sif saga tells us about the nature of spiritual seeking in general?
Oh, that's interesting.
What lessons can we learn from this deep dive?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that spiritual seeking can be a very, very vulnerable process. People are often drawn to charismatic leaders or groups that promise, enlightenment or fulfillment or a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
But that desire for connection, it can sometimes make us susceptible to manipulation or exploitation.
Yeah, it's like we're so eager to find answers or guidance that we might like overlook red flags or
Yeah.
or ignore our own like intuition. We might be willing to kind of surrender our critical thinking
Yeah.
just for the promise of something more.
Exactly. And I think another important lesson is that we need to be really cautious about placing like blind faith in any leader or organization, no matter how charismatic they seem or well-intentioned.
Right. So it's not about rejecting spirituality or guru disciple relationships altogether.
No, not at all.
It's about kind of approaching them with that healthy dose of skepticism and maintaining our own sense of agency.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially important, within the context of Gaudiya Vaishnavism where that guru-disciple relationship is so central. It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between surrendering to the wisdom of the tradition and maintaining your own critical thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked a lot about like the negative aspects of Seth, the allegations, the controversies, but let's be fair.
Sure.
Some sources do highlight like some positive aspects of the organization.
Hmm.
They talk about the sense of community, the support system, that feeling of belonging that SIF provides to its members.
Right, and that's important to acknowledge. It's crucial to understand that people can have like genuine positive experiences within groups like SIF, even if those groups also exhibit, concerning or harmful practices. Human experience is complex.
Yeah.
And individuals can find solace, meaning, support in unexpected places.
So it's not always black and white.
Right. Yeah.
There can be these shades of gray, even
Mhm.
within a group that's been accused of cult-like behavior.
Mm.
It's possible for someone to find like real benefit
Yeah.
from SIF's teachings or the community, even if others have had negative experiences.
Exactly. It's about, recognizing that there's nuance to these situations.
Right.
We can't, just dismiss the positive experiences of some members just because others have, raised concerns.
Right. Okay. I want to circle back to the concept of parampara.
Okay.
That lineage of spiritual transmission that we talked about earlier. It seems like this idea plays a central role in both like SIF's claims of legitimacy
Mm-hmm.
and the criticisms against them. So can you kind of unpack that a bit more for us?
Sure. So in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, parampara is considered the unbroken chain of spiritual authority and knowledge. It's passed down from teacher to disciple all the way back to the tradition's founder.
Yeah.
And it's seen as essential for maintaining the purity and the authenticity of the teachings.
Okay. And Butler's claiming to be like part of this lineage.
Yes.
He says that he received initiation from a guru
Mm-hmm.
who was in that line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Right.
But some of our sources are challenging this claim. They're arguing that he's deviated from the teachings or like broken the chain of transmission somehow.
Right. They're basically saying that he's not a legitimate representative of the tradition,
Right.
even if he claims to be.
Okay, so this gets to the heart of a really, really complex question.
Mm-hmm.
Like who gets to decide what constitutes a genuine lineage?
Right.
Like who has the authority to say that someone has like deviated from the true teachings?
It's a tough one. It could very easily just become a matter of interpretation or even a power struggle within the tradition.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important for individuals to approach these questions with their own critical thinking and discernment. We
Yeah.
can't just like blindly accept someone's claim of lineage or authority.
Yeah.
We need to look at their actions, their teachings, and how they embody, the principles they claim to represent.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the history of SIF, the controversies, the allegations, and even touched on the broader implications for spiritual seeking. But I still have this one burning question. What do you think is Chris Butler's endgame? What motivates him?
Ooh, that's the question.
Is it power, wealth, a genuine desire to help people?
Right. It's the million-dollar question, and I don't know if we can say for sure. We can analyze his actions, we can scrutinize his teachings, we can listen to the accounts of his followers, but ultimately I think his true motivations, those remain elusive.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's a combination of factors, a genuine desire to help people, but maybe intertwined with a need for control, a thirst for power, or even, a distorted sense of his own spiritual importance.
It's like trying to unravel like a psychological puzzle.
Yes.
And maybe we'll never fully understand what drives someone like Chris Butler.
Right.
But I think that process of trying to understand, of questioning and exploring is valuable in itself.
I completely agree. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive. It's not just about finding answers. It's about embracing the questions, the complexities, the ambiguities. It's about, developing those critical thinking skills and learning how to navigate the world of spiritual seeking with wisdom and discernment and awareness.
As we've been going through all this stuff about Great Butler and Saf, one thing that really jumps out at me is how important the whole idea of belief is to this story.
It's true, yeah. Whether it's belief in a spiritual leader or a political ideology or even a scientific theory, our beliefs have this incredible power to shape like how we see the world and how we act.
And in the case of Saif, it seems like that belief in Butler as this guru
Mm.
is what allows his followers to just accept his authority, even when his actions or teachings, might seem questionable to people looking in from the outside.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like it's this paradox for those people who are really committed to stuff. Butler's word basically becomes like the ultimate truth, even if it contradicts traditional teachings or brings up ethical concerns.
It's like the power of belief can override anything
It
else.
can, yeah. It
Yeah.
can be really powerful, yeah.
But isn't there a danger in that kind of like blind faith? Can it lead to
Yeah.
manipulation or exploitation, especially in a system like that guru-disciple relationship where, it's so hierarchical?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why it's so important to cultivate a healthy relationship with belief, one that balances faith with reason, trust with discernment.
Hmm.
It's about, recognizing that even the most charismatic or well-intentioned leaders, they're human, they're fallible.
So it's not about like rejecting belief altogether,
No, not at all.
but about finding a way to hold our beliefs lightly,
Yeah.
to be open to questioning them, to
Mm.
be willing to change our minds when we learn new information.
Yeah, I think that's a wise approach. It's about recognizing that certainty can be a trap, especially in the realm of spirituality. True spiritual growth often involves embracing like the uncertainty, questioning your assumptions, being willing to let go of those really rigid beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored all these controversies, the allegations, the this complex relationship between belief and authority. But I think it's important to remember that this deep dive isn't just about Chris Butler or Seth.
Right.
It's about something much bigger.
It is, yeah. It's about that human search for meaning, for purpose, for connection. It's about the allure of those charismatic leaders and the promise of, easy answers in a world that's really complex. And it's about that challenge of navigating the world of spirituality,
Hmm.
with wisdom, with discernment, with a healthy dose of critical thinking.
So for our listeners out there who might be on their own spiritual journeys, what advice would you give them based on what we've kind of uncovered here?
I would say. Be curious, be open, but be discerning. Don't be afraid to question, to challenge, to think for yourself. True spiritual growth often comes from wrestling with those difficult questions, from grappling with uncertainty, from really engaging in honest self-reflection. And remember that your spiritual path is ultimately your own. Don't let anyone else dictate your beliefs or control your journey.
Those are really wise words, and I think that's a perfect way to kind of wrap up our exploration of Chris Butler and the Science of Identity Foundation. It's been a fascinating deep dive, one that's raised more questions than answers, but I think that's often how it goes with these really complex topics.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from the questions themselves. That process of inquiry, of seeking understanding can be just as transformative as finding those definitive answers.
Well said. So to our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp. And who knows? Maybe someday you'll be sharing your own deep dives with the world.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep the conversation going.